I'm delighted that we're still continuing to go with some great music. We're launching a brand new song. It is by, you may remember, Eden Kane from the 1960s, bit of a teen idol, and been carrying that legacy now on into 2025. And he's got a big hit for us. I'm sure it's going to be called A Little Bit of Rock and Roll. So we're going to talk a little bit about his life and about the new single. Good afternoon, Eden. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Great to have you online. So you heard, hopefully you heard my little introduction there. We're talking about your past I'd like to go into before we really kick off and get going with the present. When did you first release a song?
Well, the very first song I released was a song called Hot Chocolate Crazy, which was way back in 1960. And that was with Pi Records. But my managers didn't think that was a great idea, even though it was released. It didn't do too well. So they found a songwriter called Johnny Worth, who had written a song for Adam Faith called What Do You Want? And he'd also written some other hits, and he wrote me a song, and it was called Will I Ask You? And so that was, I recorded that, and it was a hit, so everyone was happy.
Did you know when you first heard it, were you like, oh, this is the one, this is definitely going to be a hit?
No. I had no clue as to what was going to be a hit. Obviously, when records were playing on the radio, I used to think, well, that's a fantastic song. That's no wonder that's a hit record. I was listening to Bill Haley and Elvis and Ray Charles and stuff. But when Will I Ask You came along, it was a bit unusual. It wasn't that usual rock and roll type song. It had and that's probably why it was successful. At least one of the reasons. But I didn't really think at the time. No, later on I said, "Oh yeah, that's a hit."
Yeah, well, you can make sense of it now, but it's maybe it was a little bit too different. And what was it like for you? When it did become such a big song. How did that change your life, and how did it all feel? What was it like?
Well, it changed my life completely. Obviously, I was living in a place called Norbury, South London, near Croydon.
Yeah, that's where I'm from, Croydon.
Yeah. Yoo-hoo! Yeah. Oh, no kidding. Yeah. Oh my God.
Awesome.
I'd be wandering around George Street So I grew up there, and I had a skiffle group initially, and then I had a little rock and roll band that we started to do the youth clubs around, and then we used to go down as far as Tunbridge to do shows. So basically, I was just I just took a chance. There was this talent contest in London, in Chelsea, and I decided to enter that talent contest, and I showed up, and it just so happened that day changed my life, because in the audience happened to be my future manager, Philip, and he had just walked into the theater in Chelsea. He lived around the corner. So anyway, it was it was a major. It was one of those things, right time in the right place.
Yeah, and so then living off the trajectory of that song, of that hit, Will I Ask You?
Oh yeah.
Because most, to you maybe that's just like, oh, it's old news, but most of us haven't had the opportunity to live through something like that in our very own lives. It's pretty unique. It's pretty special. So we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, initially it's a bit of a shock to the system, because suddenly you are where you had dreamed you might be. I'd been watching Cliff and Billy Fury and Marty Wilde and all these guys on Oh Boy. Just prior to that, and I was going, wow, that looks fantastic. And I happened to play the guitar. As I said, I had this little band, and so when it did happen, you don't really imagine what it's going to be like, because you have no ideas. If you're living a different kind of life altogether, and then suddenly I'm in the whirlwind of promotion, having managers, having tours arranged. One minute I'm watching Billy Fury on TV. Next, a few months later, I'm on tour with him at Helen Shapiro. I mean, so but you think you sort of get used to it. It kind of goes to your head a bit, at first. But then you think, oh, okay, this is what I'm doing now. This is me. Let's do it. So.
And so would you say that you just threw yourself in both feet and then that was it, set for life? Music is what you're doing?
Yes, exactly. I'd always loved music. I'd always listened to music, and I'd been playing music a little bit on my guitar, etc., with my band and stuff like that. But I never dreamed that it would. Then once you get into that next stage, it's a bit of as I say, it's a bit of a shock to the system, but you then you kind of get used to it, because it's so good, because everyone's patting you on the back and going, well done, nice, good song. We enjoyed your song. And then my managers organized the PR, machine to get going. And I remember there was a fellow called Michael McGrath, who was back in the day was a great PR guy. And then, with the help of everybody, the record company and the managers, everyone helped to, make it a success,
Yeah.
And the folks, the people liked it, the listeners seemed to like it too. So it all worked. It was great.
We were talking there about the early days, but how much do you think the music industry has changed from then until now? Is it a different feeling this time round and at the moment?
Well, it is for me, because I'm not that heavily involved in it. Only because and I brought this record back, this song back, and things have changed quite a lot. Everything seems to be online, digital, AI. All these things are all very, very new to me. I mean, I have children that know way more, and grandchildren, to tell you the truth, who know more about this stuff than I do. And it works in a different way now. It's the path is the same. If you find a song, you record it, and then you find someone to get it out there into the general public, and then if they like it, I mean, some people are doing it through various channels like TikTok and the internet and all these different platforms, as they call them. So it's a whole new world, really.
Yeah, I mean, many of today's stars really have launched themselves from TikTok, from nothing until like global stars, just from that platform. It is crazy. It is different. So let's talk about your brand new single, A Little Bit of Rock and Roll. How did this song come about, and why now?
Well, back in the day, when I say back I mean about 2.5 years ago, which was really my last tour, which I did with Marty Wilde. In that, and we'd also done a few oldies but goodies tours, the solid gold rock and roll tours. I did quite a few of those. And anyway, a couple of years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, I actually wrote the song. And I thought, well, I need a little bit of rock and roll in my act. And I need to write, I thought I'll write a song that it's called A Little Bit of Rock and Roll, because I used to close my act with a song that I recorded called I Don't Know Why. And it was and it was not a rock and roll song. It was a redo of an old standard. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, I need to end this show with, as I say, a little bit of rock and roll. So I wrote the song. And I started doing it at the end of my act as like a closer, and just a couple of verses of it. it went down extremely well. So this is why eventually, like 2.5 years later, I said, well, why not? Let's do this and let's see how I can get it back. Get another hit record, if possible. And
of course it is.
So I put it out there, and it's doing quite well, I'm happy to say.
It's very exciting. We're going to play it just a few seconds' time. I'm just wondering, what is next for you? Goals and dreams? Jumping on the bandwagon of this definitely a hit single?
Well, I'd like to do that. I'd like to. There's a thing called the Heritage Chart, which I believe it's on, and this is to enable me to do a few more gigs. I'd like to come back perhaps next year. There are things in the works now, and I'm going to be doing. I'm going to now record another couple of songs. And so I'd like to come back and do a few shows, basically. So that's the plan. Busy.
But the important thing right now is, of course, this single. I've been speaking to Eden Kane. Now, if I could hand it over to you, please, to introduce this song.
Oh, sure. Here's a song by Eden Kane. It's called A Little Bit of Rock and Roll. I hope you like it.
She was a sweet senorita, licking the sound of her margarita. I headed to the bar stool and gave her a glance. Well, she looked at me like I crawled out from under a rock right there. I began to wonder. The bartender said, "Give it up, son, you don't stand a chance." Well, that's the kind of day I've had all day. Oh, but that's okay. And the band played a little bit of rock and roll. Sometimes we'll do, yeah. A little bit of rock and roll will make you feel alright. When the world is getting to you, always hallelujah. A little bit of rock and roll will get you through the night. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I said, hit me again, give the lady what she's drinking. A faint heart never won the hand of the fair maiden. Then a man in a big-ass hat said, amigo, about to get yourself killed by a fella called Rio. There's a man at the door, senor. I think that's him. Well, that's the kind of night I've had all night. Well, that's all right. Hold tight now. A little bit of rock and roll sometimes will do ya. A little bit of rock and roll will make you feel all right. When the world's getting to ya, glory, hallelujah. A little bit of rock and roll will get you through the night. Come on. Well, the rain got hot, but I was getting colder. Rio walked right in, put his hand on my shoulder. I didn't need a rocket scientist to figure it out. Sometimes a man's got to know his limitations. I was over my head in a bad situation. I got up looking for the easy way out. This kind of thing could really make your day. As I was on my way, I heard the band play a little bit of rock and roll. Sometimes will do ya. Just a little bit of rock and roll will make you feel alright. When the world is getting to you, glory, hallelujah. A little bit of rock and roll will get you through the night. That's right. Give me just a little bit. I need a little bit.